Welcome to this presentation. My name is Access Sifa, a student at South New Hampshire University, majoring in communication and concentrating in business. So the topic of this presentation is contribution of gender equality policy for the well-being of women in Rwanda. So it's basically a case study of Kimirongo sector in Gasawa district. So through this presentation, we are going to go through different points, which are the motivation of the research, the problem statement, the hypothesis and objectives of the research, the population sample size and sampling strategy of the research, as well as the key finding that guide us through this research and the problem identified, as well as practical solutions that were obtained after analyzing the results of the research, and then after the practical solutions to the problem identified, as well as the skills contribution to the research process. And at the end, we will view the conclusion as well as the recommendations. Starting with the motivation, so Rwanda aims to become a high-income country with high standard of living for its citizens by the year of 2050, and maybe this research can be helpful for that goal of Rwanda to be reached. So a laudable progress for improving the well-being of men and women in Rwanda is in progress, and according to the research and how the topic is impactful to the well-being of men and women, this research may be kindly affecting or able to affect that progress in the future. So it also a way of presenting the status key answer that are still needed in to be made in the gender inclusion and social transformation of Rwanda. So this also will be a way of addressing missing gaps that are in the Rwandan community and that still need to be fulfilled by a year or many years to come. So it will be also for us to ensure that every individual has equal opportunities and make and reach all opportunities needed without basing on any case or without basing on what they believe, without basing on who they are or the type of gender that are. And this also we make sure that no one is having a poor life chance by the tomorrow or by any other day that has come. So the problem statement of this research is that in Rwanda, there is Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion, as well as gender monitoring office. They all committed like 26% of national budget to gender-based budget that ensures the promotion of gender equality, according to the UNDP in 2017. So the government support focuses on women of the country to become economically independent. However, in one significant sense, women have given the rights as men. In military, for example, in education, in inheritance, now women are able to have the voice in parliament. However, there are still needs or gaps to be filled in for the laudable progress and improvement of women billing. For example, in careers, in lives standards, there are still a big gap in salaries for men and women that no one has been talking about. So basically, that's the problem statement of this research. So going to the hypothesis and objectives, and starting with the hypothesis, there is segregation of labor market, agreeably increasing genderly based, specifically based on the type of gender. So the objective of this research is to identify the state of gender equality policy implementation in Rwanda, and then demonstrate the gender inequality that still exists within household, workplaces, and in a society. And afterward, develop a way to reduce barriers to personal and economic development created by sexes and also gender discrimination. So the population and sample size and sample strategy that have been used through this research is that population of the research are women in Kimurong sector, specifically Gasabo district in Rwanda. And during this research, a sample random sampling strategy applied, whereby population has an equal chance of inclusion in the sample, and the total population reached to the number of 44. But based on the target population, the sample size was calculated based on on the formula, whereby N is the sample size and P the total number of employees and E the margin size. At the end, we found that the people that have been reached out through this research are to the number of 40 people. Starting with the first key finding, as you can see, this table demonstrated the cases, and they were mentioned by the name because due to the formalities and due to the fact that we agreed with them, we agreed with the respondents to stay anonymous in case of any change in the future. So as you can see through this table, they are all named by letters, and the findings of this research, all are women, all respondents are women, and we basically based on women because they are the ones who are really tackled through this research and are the ones that are really impacted by gender discrimination and sexism in the area of work or households and society. So we didn't want to base on only few on a limited age. So we started from 18 years old to 60 years. That's the gap age that we used through this research. And we didn't define any education level, as you can see through this table. There are people from secondary schools, bachelor degree, master degree, PhD, and even those who do not have any education level. So the occupation wasn't given also any limitation. As you can see from the table, there are law enforcement warden, housewives, and managers, and bankers, and even students. So continuing with other key findings, this table demonstrates the number of time the respondent responded to a question in the interview and the level on which they were able to go through the interview questions. So as you can see, the two of them answered to 100%, and one of them answered 2 times the interview, which shows that mostly and basically women aren't feeling free to talk about the gender equality questions or questions that gather around gender equality, because the one who has answered or who went through the interview question at the lowest level was to a 40%. And continuing with graphs, as you can see from the first graph, only people from the age of 18 to 24 was able to respond to the high frequency the questions, and people from age to 34 and to 40 to 35 to 44 weren't able to answer as much as they could. So from the second graph, as you can see, we asked them about if they can still see gender inequality through our society, through Rwandan society, through households, through workplaces, and 55.56% answered with the yes, and 44.44% answered the no. So which also get us to the real question that we asked ourselves about gender inequality in Rwanda society. So the first graph on the left side show us how they think the gender implementation policies have been improving, and 88% say that from 10 years back, yes, gender have been improving, because now we can find women having inheritance, we can find women in parliament, we can find women in military and in different types of education. And on the second graph, as you can see, we were still asking them if they still feel in specifically salary level, if they still feel like that there are some gaps and 33% answered that yes, in salary level, there are still a big gap because it depends on the case, or it depends on the career that have been chosen by the person. And 55.56% answered with a no, based on what they do or where they are or their occupation, where 11.11% answered with different perspective of what they see or how a person deserves to be paid by salary. The other findings also is about how they see, or the perspective on what they are willing to do about this case. And on the left side, on the first graph, the question was basically if they still encounter right now gender based gender-based discrimination or sexism around the partners at work, their partners at home, or even colleagues, and even people around across the street. And yes to 33% and no to 44%. However, we asked them if they still feel or want an improvement, or if they are still a big gap that has to be filled in gender implementation, in gender policy implementation. And 55.56% answer with a yes, which is a big percentage to us, because these women want to see the society changing. They want to see their lives changing and their lifestyle changing. And 44% answered with a no, where they feel like they have had enough of changings, and they feel like everyone has role to be playing, especially for women and for men. So after the analysis of the data that we found, we have get to the main core of the problem, where we found that 55.56% of respondents agreed the fact that women and men in Rwanda are not observed in the same way on some fields. And then 44% believe that there is still no gap to be filled. And the main problem in that findings research is that there is still a gap to be filled according to the comparison of those numbers or those statistics. So comparing other findings in Rwanda Monitoring Office, in Gender Monitoring Office, and in the Ministry of Family and Gender, where their research shows that there is no need to talk about the implementation of gender equality policy in Rwanda. However, we do believe from the statistics and the data that we have collected that some work field and educational institution still need gender balance to be considered. So practical solutions that we have had to these problems stated are that paid and expected the same salary for equal work. So every man and women should be advocated to have the same rights to payings. And according to UN data, women earn the average of 70 to 90 cents of every dollar earned by men. So the solution to that, it's critical to examine and promote organizations that provide same wage and perks and incentive to employees in comparable roles. So there are basically organizations that help to promote the same wage and perks in incentive to employees in comparable roles. So if it's not occurring in our company, and we have to help others to mobilize resources and relationship to request salary transparency and equal pay audits. So most of organizations in Rwanda and institutions do not have equal pay audits. So it's more of us to mobilize and to root for a relationship that requires salary transparency. So another solution is also to provide anti-biases trainings. The government or local authorities can introduce to Rwanda citizens trainings on avoiding bias and discrimination to gender basing according to cultural myths. So in this research, skills that allowed us to go through the research, especially skills from college from America, is decision making that help us to know how we are going to make the research, which steps are we going to go through, which decision are we going to make, and critical thinking in any cases where we find problems, where we make problems through the research, we had to critically think about what we are going to, or the next step that are going to be made. And the planning skills that help us to go through how we are going to make every step, and from the start to the big to the end. And skills from Kepler, like communication skills, how to document, how to create a PowerPoint, an effective PowerPoint, how to document data, how to insert data that will be more and more edible. And also negotiating skills, whereby a respondent could not be able to respond to certain questions, and at the end we could allow them we could help them to give us a response that we want due to the negotiation skills and how we negotiated with them. And also another last skill that help us is time management, whereby we were able to manage our time through research on field, and also through allowing ourselves to make the presentation be on time. So concluding, the research was about contribution of gender equality policy for the well-being of women in Rwanda, and the research was found to be improving as days goes by. And the finding in the research shows that there is still a big gap to be filled, especially on the side of careers and fair opportunities for all. And the solution is to introduce gender-based training and training center to Rwandan citizens. And the solution will allow to improve not only in the implementation of gender-based policy, but also in the well-beings of women. So as all we can see, the hypothesis that was in the research was proven to be right. So recommendation, we have the recommendation based on two different parties. Recommendation to local authorities, which means at Mudugudus, at district level, a citizen must be helped by experts in terms of having person near them by who they can be feel free to talk to in any case of gender discrimination. And local authorities should also introduce more courses on gender-based information during student seminaries, which are also known as Ingando. And recommendation to Gender Monitor Office and other NGOs in charge of women development. So those organizations like Gender Monitoring Office should have a center or training on gender, and they should create projects that are based on gender-based information for the purpose of informing both genders, men and women, on gender balance and how to avoid sexism at any places, workplaces, house places, and allow women to have a nice life around and have a prosperous life in the future. Thank you for your kind attention. That was all about the research made.